Everybody, how's it going? Week 5 online, back from spring break. Hopefully everybody had a good break. Maybe it wasn't very exciting, seeing as it's a lot of the same stuff, being at home, going through it too. Okay, but we're back here at it, and we're going to be doing congruent triangles. So this is Math 1, so all my Math 1 kids, here we go. We're going to look at congruent triangles, what they are, and how we know. All right, now we actually did a little bit of this in class before we left the classroom. So some of this is going to be a little bit of review, so I'm not going to go into too much detail at the beginning, but there will be some new stuff towards the end. We'll get there when we get there. So first thing, what are congruent triangles? And then we're going to look at how do we know if two triangles are congruent. Yeah. So what are they? And then how do we know if they are congruent? And we're going to look at a few examples, and then we're going to look at what the homework is. There's 2 assignments this week, and we're going to take a quick look at both of them. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. So this is what I posted on Google Classroom along with the first assignment, and it's just a little picture that shows you some corresponding things. Now, we talked about the word corresponding in class. Corresponding means it's in the same relative spot, So, for instance, you might have 2 cars on the road, and there are different drivers, one driver for each car. Now, both drivers are sitting in the front left seat. So they're in the same spot in each relative car, but they're not actually sitting in the same spot. Otherwise, they'd be in each other's laps. So we're talking about the same relative spot. So for instance, A is here in the bottom left, and F is here in the bottom left. So these two are corresponding. And so we see that A and F are, what's this symbol here? That's congruent. This is the congruency symbol. So A is congruent to F. Okay, well, what else? B and E are both in the top. So B and E must be corresponding, and they're congruent. Now, just to kind of back up a little bit here, I'm taking 2 triangles and I'm assuming, or rather I should say that I already know that they're congruent. And because I know they're congruent, I'm able to make statements about how A is the same as F, how B is the same as E, and how C is the same as D. Right. In a minute, we'll talk about how do we know if they are congruent, but for right now, we're saying that they are. And if you're not sure how we know, it's right here. We're saying ABC is congruent to FED. ABC is congruent to FED. Or it notes BCA is congruent to EDF. BCA, EDF. I made a big point about the order of the letters in class. The order matters. If you put A first letter, you have to put whatever A goes with first. So since A is first, F has to be first. And since C is last, D has to be last, since C goes with D. So you can switch the order up here, but you have to also switch the order up here to match. So now B and E are together, and C and D are together still, and A and F are together still. So all of those still have to match. Right. All right, and the side lengths here, AB goes with FE. So now I'm just looking at the side lengths. AB goes with FE. All right, same kind of idea as the angles. BC is this side here, and that matches with this one. Now, I think everybody's familiar with these lines. So just real quick, I'll say, if it has 1 dash and 1 dash, that means those are the same. If it's got 2 dashes and 2 dashes, that means those are the same. Same with the angles, 1 dash, 1. Okay, so that's the same. 2, 2, so that's the same 2. Right. And then 3 and 3, those are the same. Perfect. So I'm noticing that in these 2 triangles, I have 6 total things. I've got 3 sides and 3 angles, and I see that all 3 sides are congruent, respectively, or correspondingly, and all 3 angles are congruent. So all this side is congruent to this is this one's this one, all 3 of them. And same with the angles. All 3 angles have a matching angle on the other triangle. Good. So that's useful. I can say, okay, well, let's say I know that this side length is 5, and let's say I told you that this was X, and I wanted to know what X was. Well, since this side corresponds with this, and this is 5, X must be 5. Okay. Now, what if I told you that this was 8, and I told you that this was like 2m. All right, if that's 8 and that's 2m, well, 2m goes with 8, so I know for sure that 2m is 8. Great. Now, we're not done because we're going to probably want to know what m is. So if 2m is 8, well, that makes m equal to 4. And I'll skip the algebra because I feel like you guys should be pretty solid on the algebra. We'll focus on the geometry for today. Good. So that's that. And you can do the same thing with the angles. If you have questions, let me know. Comments on Remind, Google Classroom, anything, let me know. All right, let's move to the next thing. So this was, what are congruent triangles? Well, that's what they are. There are two triangles where all of the sides and all of the angles are congruent. And we did a couple of things to look at all of that. And now we're going to look at, how do we know if two triangles are congruent? If I just gave you two triangles and I wanted to know if they were congruent or not, we're going to need some sort of way to tell, like, what are we looking for to know if they're congruent. So we're going to focus on these two rules. SSS, which stands for side, 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 so side, 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 and SAS, which is side, angle, side. So all the S's are standing for side, and that one A is standing for angle. So we're going to be looking at the sides, and we're going to be looking at the angles. Now, I think side, side, side is the most obvious one. If all of the three sides are congruent, then that means that the triangle is congruent. So since this side matches with this one, that's one side. And since this one matches with this one, that's a second side. And then this one matches with this one, that's three sides. So all three sides are congruent. So that means that these two triangles are congruent. And so let's look at example number 3. You see how I have this side is matching with this one. How do I know that? Well, because it's got these three little lines. So that means that these two here and here are congruent. So that's one. We got one. We need all three. And I'm looking at these two here. So there's two dashes and there's two dashes. So that means that this side is congruent to this side. So now I've got two sides. This was the first set. And now I've got a second set. What about a third? I don't see any more little red marks. But I do notice that this triangle and this triangle come together right here at this side. In fact, this side length is the same for this triangle as it is for this triangle. So that means that this side length, because it's shared, it's got to be the same for both. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All three sides line up. All three sides that are corresponding are congruent. So by SSS, I can say that these two are congruent. So I'm just going to put short, I'm going to put congruent. Bam. That's supposed to be a C. Let's make that a little clearer. All right, so that's congruent. Perfect. And on the homework, this is all I want you to do too. I just want you to say congruent or not congruent. So let's take a look at the other one. Side angle side. Side angle side is very similar. We're going to look at two sides. And I want you to notice that the letter A is in the middle. It's not on the outsides, it's in the middle. So we're looking for an angle that's between the two sides. So if here's a side and here's a side, I'm looking for the angle right in between. So that's what this picture is showing you. You've got a side and an angle in the middle. Not this angle here. That would be side angle. That's different. I want the angle inside. So here's my side, and I need the angle in between them. So let's take a look at this one down here. Let's see, my picture's a little bit in the way. Let's see if I can move this. Perfect. Okay, I've got, and I accidentally moved I had made some marks here. Let me just put them back in. So while I'm doing this, let me just point out to you that those two triangles do label two sides. And they show us that we've got this side and this side both have two markings. And I'm just going to fill this angle in real quick. This side and this side both have two markings, so they're the same. This side and this side both have two markings, so they're the same. And we see that the angles are marked here and here. So that means that those angles are the same also. So I've got a side, an angle, and a side in that order. And on this side, I've got a side, an angle, and a side in that order. So by side, angle, side, I can say that these two triangles are also congruent. Perfect. And again, in the homework, I just want you to say if the triangles are congruent or if they're not. Okay, great. So let's take a look at number 5. Number 5, I see a side and an angle. I see a side and an angle. So this side is congruent to this side. This angle is congruent to this angle. Is that enough information? Is that enough? Well, I either have to have 3 sides or I can have 2 sides and an angle. Do I have that? No. I just have 1 side and an angle. So I cannot say that they're congruent. Not congruent. What about this one? Well, let's see. I have this side is congruent to this side because I'm looking at the 2 little red marks. I have that this side is congruent to this side. I'm looking at that 1 little red mark. And I see that this angle is congruent to this one. So I've got 2 sides and an angle. So that's looking like this, but let's be careful because remember the angle has to be in the middle. So if I look here, it's side, then angle, then side. So this one's good, side, angle, side. But let's look at this one. This one says side, side, angle. So SSA, that's not the right order. So this one's not going to work either. Okay, good. So we had an example of side, side, side. All 3 sides were the same. And I've got side, angle, side here, 2 sides and an angle in between. And then a couple of examples where they didn't actually work. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Again, I'm free for questions. Just let me know in the comments or in reminder, however you want to reach to me. All right, let's move forward. I'm going to give you guys a little real world example. So you guys have seen this picture. This was the gate that I built a couple weeks ago and I showed you guys. But I want to point out some things that are relevant to what we talked about just right now. In this gate, I've got a whole bunch of triangles. And there's a reason for that. In fact, one of the videos that I posted along with the assignment is a little video about why triangles are important in structural engineering and what makes them so strong. And we'll kind of touch on that in just a second. But the triangles here I outlined, I'm going to make use of the postulates, the SSS and the SAS that we just talked about here to see if these 2 triangles are congruent in my gate. And how am I going to do that? Okay, well, I have 2 ways, right? I can, well, more than 2 ways, but one of the things I could do based on what we said here is I could see all the sides and all the angles, and I can see if all the sides line up and if all the angles line up. So if all the sides and all the angles are congruent, then that means that those 2 triangles are the same. But what we learned here is that we don't actually need all 6. We just need either 3 sides or 2 sides and 1 of the angles. So let's do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a look at just a couple of sides and 1 angle. So for example, I know for a fact that this angle here is 90 degrees. I won't measure it for you, but I know that this is 90. And I know that this is 90. So right away, I know that this angle is the same as this angle. So I have the A for SAS. Now I just need 2 sides. And they need to be the 2 sides where the angle's in the middle. So it needs to be this side and this side. So let's grab my ruler. Here we go. And let's start measuring these sides. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up. There's no number markings here, so I'm just going to have to count. I already know that these big markings are 10 because I already counted this out before I made the video. But here we go. 10, 20, 30, 40. All right, so this is, let's use black. This is a length of 40. Am I going to get something? I guess not. This is a length of 40. Now let's check the bottom. Line it up right here. I'm looking right here, lining it up, and I'm going to count across 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay, good. So this distance and this distance are the same. So I know that 2 sides are the same, and I know that this angle is the same. So let's look at the other side. Let's rotate my ruler up to 90 degrees. Okay, here we go. I'm going to measure the top triangle first. So I'm lining it up right here at the bottom, and I'm going to count my way to the top. So let's see what we get here. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55, 56, 57, 58, like 57 or 58. Yeah, somewhere in there, 57, 58. So now let's check the bottom triangle and see if it lines up also. Hopefully it does. So I'm going to line it up right here, and I'm going to count my way down. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55, 56, 57, 50. Yep. Yeah, right around 57, 58, just like the top one. Okay, good. So this is good. That tells me that this side is congruent to this one. Remember, they were both 40. And this side is congruent to this one because they're both like somewhere between 57 and 58. So I know two sides, and I know the angle between them. So do I need to measure these other two angles? Do I need to measure this side over here, or do I just already know that they're going to be the same? Well, I already know they're going to be the same because by side angle side congruency, I know that these two triangles are congruent, which means that this angle has to match with this one. This one has to match with this one, and this side length has to match with this side length. All right, so I don't even have to measure it. Now let's go ahead and measure one of them just for the sake of it. I'm going to take my protractor here, and I'm going to measure this angle here, and I'm going to measure the corresponding one here, and we'll see if it really is congruent. So I've lined it up right here at the vertex. Here's my 0, and I'm going to count my way up. And these markings are very tiny, so I already know that from here to here is 15. So this is 30, and this is 45. So now to count, 46, 47, 48, 49. Let me try it again. 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. Looks like it's pretty right there on 55. Okay, good. So I'm going to measure now this angle, and we'll see if we get 55. It's looking pretty okay. So I got it right there in the corner. Here's my 0, 15, 30, 45. And now I'm going to count 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. There we go. Perfect. So I didn't have to measure that, but in measuring it, I was able to conclude, or at least confirm, I should say, that these two triangles are indeed congruent. Now, do I need to find all three sides? No. Do I need to find all three angles? No. What do we need? We just need either all three sides or two sides and the one angle between. And that's that. Okay, so this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you the homework real quick, and then we'll call it a day. Here's the first assignment. It's very straightforward. I just want you to take a look at the pictures and say, which one of these is correct. Does x equal 12.2? Does x equal 12.2? Or does x equal something else? And then here, same thing. In the next page, we're going to do a little bit of solving where we're going to match the variables, but then actually write the number down rather than multiple choice. This one, you're actually going to write something down. Make sure you solve these variables all the way. And then the second assignment is going to be, here's the rubric, which is also posted. The second assignment is going to be this guy, which looks like the examples we did earlier. You're just going to say if they're congruent. So are these congruent? Are these congruent? And you're going to do it just like I did. You're going to check to see if you have three sides or two sides with the angle between them. And that's that. All right, cool. That's it for this video, and I will see you next week.